Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Dog Talk. This is episode 61A.
I'm Kim and this is Julie.
Yes.
This week's Torah portion will go from Deuteronomy 21:10 to the end of 25. It is a recap of what we've already learned throughout the rest of Torah, because again, this is Moshe just speaking, kind of reminding them. Now, there is this kind of bookend in Deuteronomy 11 going to Deuteronomy 27, where we had a blessing and a curse, and now we're going to have at 27 we'll have it more of a listing of those things. And Rabbi Foreman says that what's in between is basically fleshing out what's needed in order to have the curse and the blessing. So we're seeing ways that we're going to behave. Now, what's interesting is that from 11 on to I'm not sure what, you kind of have between the Lord and us, right? Like the first half. And now we see a lot of between the individuals, between people, right?
Oh, okay.
How you love God,
so how you
and
love
now
God,
how you love
others.
Neighbor, right?
All right.
So here we see how you love your neighbor. And that's a lot of what we see this week. Because again, we are not an island. Our behavior affects others.
Yeah.
It affects Israel as a
so.
whole. And I would say that even today, as we are being grafted in and coming into the body of Messiah, that we are still, to this day, affecting those who are in the land in Israel.
Absolutely. And we as believers need to remember that when the Lord sets up his ways, he lays it out for us perfectly. He doesn't just say, oh, by the way, I'm going to change everything and figure it out.
Right. Or he doesn't.
I mean, that's kind of what Christianity claims, right? Is that Yeshua lived Torah perfectly. He said, follow me. Then he died and said, okay, never mind. Figure it out.
Right.
Figure out how you're supposed to act.
Right. Figure it out. No, he literally gives us a step-by-step process.
Yes.
And that's what this week actually is. I see a lot of is the process. So we're told not to do things, right? To walk in his ways. So he's not assuming no one's going to do them. I mean, he knows we're going to be disobedient. So he says, don't do this, and when it happens, here's how you react. So a lot of what we see this week is, while you shouldn't do these things, when you do, here's how you're going to proceed. Here's how you're going to rein in those personal, lustful desires. You're going to put them in check. And even if they're going to show up, you're going to now know what to do with them. Not just push them back down, but have to deal with them head on. And that's what we see in a lot of this week's Torah portion. So several of these processes that we see this week is how to deal when men are in war, how to respond to the women who are present, what to do when you decide you want more than one wife, how to handle things that are lost. I really like that necklace I found, right? How to respond to those things.
Or that wallet with money.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Big one.
Or deciding you're tired of someone and then accusing them, a wife accusing them and wanting divorce, how to handle that.
Try to place the blame on someone else.
Exactly, yeah. Or rape.
What you want.
Men and women. So I say when there's a rape that happens, but also when there's a, well, he made me do it type scene, right? That's also addressed here as well as how to handle that. We also see for greed, how to not be greedy, how to make sure that what you might think is I'm not being greedy, the Lord is he's setting that precedent of, okay, that may be what you call not greedy. Here's what I call not greedy.
Right.
Here's what I call being able to share. So we see all that weaved in this week. Also, we see the love for your brother, because understanding that when I can put myself in check, I am making life easier for my brother as well. Not just when it's on the earthly level between man and man, but also when it's between man and God. All that affects Israel remaining in the land. And this week we actually see one of the other promises that promises you long life, which we know is the parent, right?
Right.
That's in the 10 words, 10 commandments. It's funny because it also says that when you shoo the mother bird away before you take the young, that too is one that prolongs your life in the land.
Caring for animals.
Yeah, caring for animals. But it's interesting because it again mentions a parent, the mother.
Well, isn't it measure for measure? Because you are honoring life.
Yes.
Therefore, your measure is you get longer life.
Yeah, I like that.
You know? Measure for measure. Yeah. Everything is measure for measure. I'm just learning.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Really coming to the realization.
It really is. I just thought it was interesting because it brings up the mother bird, and then the other one for prolonged life is honoring your mother and father.
Yes.
So it's honoring the mother. It's honoring the one that gave life.
Yes, the life giver.
Right. Yes, it's honoring them. So how much more should we honor our life giver, the Father?
Right,
and what does that happen? It makes us obedient, and then we have prolonged life.
Yes.
Because Torah is life. Yes. So you end up having it all the way from what you think is not even significant to all the way to the head where it is significant.
Yes.
That's why it says even the least of the commandments is still like you're breaking them all.
Right, because it's a testimony.
Right.
I mean, it is a shadow of something bigger that we have to represent correctly.
Yeah.
I mean, how are people going to understand the Lord who is spiritual, if we can't represent him correctly physically?
Right, because we can only understand right now the physical.
Right.
And that's what helps us interpret.
That's why he gives us these rules and commandments and laws so we can represent him correctly.
Yeah.
Which is fulfilling the third commandment.
That's right. Representing him. Don't take his name in vain. So let's take a look real quick at how the process of keeping ourselves in check begins. In this week's Torah portion, we have where a gentleman who is, a warrior or a soldier is at war. He has to be a gentleman. He can bring the woman that he sees and desirable. He brings her into her house and he keeps her for 30 days. He doesn't keep her like locked up in a room. Okay.
Not like a prisoner.
No, not like a prisoner.
He cares for her for 30 days. Like when you find a puppy on the side of the road, right?
Take it. The Israelite soldier is to bring her in. Head shaved, nails cut. He takes all that beauty away that might have been what drew her.
A distraction.
Yeah, yes. And it said that during the time of war, actually the nations would have their women dress up beautifully, looking good as a distraction from the war.
Well, I'm sure, yeah.
And used as a weapon. Well, hello, did they do that with Balaam? I mean, that's what Balaam had in Baal Peor, right? All the women.
Isn't that happening today?
Yes, absolutely. So they basically stripped them down, and took away anything that might be beautiful, allowed them to mourn the loss of their parents.
Oh, I get it. It's like when the Lord takes us in, he strips all the false doctrine, all those things that made us desire. Oh, were you going to say all that? Sorry.
Go ahead.
All those things that the world desires. The world desires the false doctrine, the feeding the flesh. And I just know when we came into this, that's what happened. He literally stripped us of everything we knew to the point where we're like, I don't know anything.
No.
I don't know anything. And then he started building his precepts. Now it's like, I can't believe I ever believed all that. Now after, I don't know.
Yeah,
I see the connection.
Psalms 45, where it brings in the bride. Okay, she comes in. She has to leave her parents, take on the father's family. Yep. Okay, well, he's allowing her to mourn. He's not saying, now get it together. You have to be like me. He's giving her 30 days of mourning the loss. Because it is a detachment. But in that mourning and losing it, she's also starting to reconnect because it's his loving kindness.
And then she realizes
the Lord's loving kindness. That is actually going to, at the end, where he's going to be, I want you as a wife. Now, here's what's interesting. In that process, after the 30 days of her mourning and starting to realize, you guys aren't so bad. I think I like it here. And then he brings her in as a wife, a full wife. There's not like you're less or anything. She is from a foreign nation, but she comes in as a full wife, full rights, full everything that anyone who is born an Israelite grew up would have. She comes in that way.
Wow.
However, if during those days he decides, she's just not, whatever reason, whether she's just fighting it or she refuses, he can say, no wedding. We're not getting married. Because see, nothing's happened for those 30 days. It's not like he's having his way with her. So here he's like, that's fine. If you choose not to have her, you release her and let her go her way. Well, the Lord does that with us also. When he brings us in, if we just fight and are not interested, he's willing to say, that's fine. Go your way.
Right.
So, and when she goes, she doesn't go back to like Babylon.
Right.
She goes into the nation of Israel.
She just now has a different role.
Right. She's just not a part of the bride.
Like the least in the kingdom.
Exactly. The least. Exactly. She's like, I just don't want to do that.
Right.
Okay, that's fine.
He's a gentleman. You don't have to be the bride.
And she's not punished because she is undesirable.
Right.
She just has to go back into the general population.
Right.
There's several other wife things we see. Like we see the multiple wives, if he wants the multiple wives, which again here, he's like, not a good idea, but if you're going to do it, don't make the children suffer. So it really looks back to Jacob with Rachel and Leah. So you can't have the one that's least loved. Because think about it. You're not going to marry one and then later go marry one that you love least.
Right.
Your second wife will always be the one that you, quote, love more. Or third, or whoever you recently added.
Right. Because you feel like you needed to add.
You feel like you need
I got you. I'm following now.
So the Lord's like, if you can't control yourself thinking, I got to have that one, the first one is not going to suffer because you changed your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to still provide her firstborn, or whoever has the firstborn, as the firstborn, which usually you don't take them both at the same time.
Yeah.
The Lord's going to allow that first wife to have that first child, who's going to carry on the name and have the full rights. We see this protection continuing in 22:13 through 17, where we see now if you're tired of your wife, it says. You've grown tired of her. So you start to blame her and say, she really was adulterous. She really wasn't
false
pure.
accusations.
Yes, false accusations. Starts to blame her for things, okay, just to get out of it. You want to come out smelling like a rose. Mm-hmm. And the Lord puts prohibition. You're not allowed. If you do that, you will never be able to write a creed of divorce for her ever, if it ends up that it's not true. Mm-hmm. And that kind of leads us into the next point that we see about marriage is the divorce in 24, where a creed of divorce is allowed to be given. However, to remarry, if she's gone her way, had another lover, she can't come back. We see this in Romans 7, where he basically says, listen, according to the Torah, you've had a husband, you've left him, you've been divorced, you can't go back. Mm-hmm. And it's so awesome when you really start to read it with this understanding. He says not only did we have where Messiah died, but we died in him. You see, not only did we need our husband to die, because that's according to Torah. Only once the husband dies are you now not considered an adulteress. Right. But we too died. When we died through Christ, we now are able, as a new creature, we had no husband, to come and choose to be brought in to be remarried. Oh. That's that whole northern and southern.
Yes.
What you going to say?
I was going to say that's why it's so important that we walk in his ways, or else we're adulterous. I'm so understanding the woman in Revelation who is adulterous. She's supposed to be married. She said yes to the covenant, but yet she lives like she's from Babylon.
Right. Okay, so now in Hebrews 6, where it says once you've tasted it and you've gone through, now you're just crucifying him all over again.
Right. There's no more forgiveness. How are you going to come in now?
Right. Because he already provided the way. You died. You said yes. Now you remarried, and now you went off.
Yeah.
So we see it was necessary, again, for Yeshua to die so that we too could die and be raised again.
Right.
Now, we know that there are several things for the death penalty.
Right.
And the person is killed, then they hang them up on a tree.
Hello.
Just for the time, a short time, a few hours, for the reason for people to see it and fear the Lord, to see it and obey, to go, oh, wow, yeah, I'm going to listen. I'm going to fear the Lord. I'm going to do what he's asked me to do. Mm-hmm. It's as a reminder, this too could be you if you do what he did. There are a list of things that he tells us constitute the death penalty. Let's see, we have adultery, the rebellious one who won't listen.
Okay.
Well, I think that pretty much covers all of us right there.
Yeah.
Okay. We have the murder. Well, obviously, if you murder, okay.
And these are all stoning.
These are all, death. Okay. Stoning, or the Lord's going to put you to death.
Okay.
Kidnapping, cursing your parents, sleeping with the beast. There's all kinds of sexual ones. Ignoring the Shabbat, the Sabbath. Giving your children to Moloch. Any type of wizardry, sorcery, calling on the dead. Blasphemy, taking on a priestly role or a role that you're not supposed to have, and speaking for the Lord when you were not asked to.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Ouch.
I think we're all guilty.
Yes. That one hurt.
Yeah. So here are all reasons for the death penalty. Now, every one of those would have easily been put up on a tree afterwards to say, remember, don't do this. Knowing that, think about when Yeshua, when he hung on the tree, he literally took every one of those things that we're responsible for, we're guilty for, and had it on him. And guess what we're supposed to do? Look at him and go, oh, we don't want to do that.
Right.
That's what all those sins are. Oh, look what he did for us, so we don't have to. Let's hear and obey.
Right.
And that's what we actually see after the rebellious son this week is so that they will hear and fear the Lord.
Yes.
Hear and obey. So not only are we looking upon him for our salvation, we're looking upon him to understand that the amount of fear of the Lord that we should have, the awe and the wanting, the desiring to walk in his ways. There are some other really cool tidbits this week that I just thought I'd throw out there. One is we see in 23:15 where it talks about if a slave comes, that you don't return him back. You hold on to him, you let him come and live in our midst and be peaceable. Yet we see Paul taking Philemon, how do you say? It's not filet mignon, that is not it. But it makes me think of that. Philemon.
Philemon?
That one.
Okay.
Yet Paul takes him back to his owner. But only for this reason. Because the master that he was taking him back to, the owner, was also a believer. So see, the idea of a runaway slave is to let him reside within Israel so he might be treated rightly.
Right.
Well, by returning him as a believer to a believer, now think of how much more the Hebrews take care of their slaves. And he got to go back and they almost got to, I guess, be a testimony to each other.
Yes.
And lift up each other in the house where they now have more believers.
And it also shows that Paul was using Torah as his basis for what was right and wrong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great point. Another two more cool little things I saw was, it talks about the lost and found, that you are to keep it, right? Well, I see this clearly in John 17, where Yeshua talks about all that you've given me, I've kept. For you,
haven't
right?
lost any.
Right. Except for the one, which he was supposed to.
Right.
But that's what we're told to do, is keep it for the owner. Yeshua kept us for the owner, for the Father.
Yes.
So this week again has so many fantastic things. We hope that you are continue to be blessed by the Lord, and that you get to really use your time in the Word this week and get to find even more nuggets that we didn't get to talk about.
Absolutely.
So we will see you on the flip side with the Brit Hadashah and Julie. Shalom.